If you've been dreaming of buying a holiday home with waterfront views, this could be the deal for you. Marketed as a once-in-a-lifetime bargain, apartments in a resort are being sold for prices as low as $50,000. But they do come with a catch.
3 weeks, thousands of kilometers, and towns most Australians don't even know exist. I drove through places where you can buy a house for less than a second-hand car in Sydney. Not land, not a shed. Actual houses with bedrooms, kitchens, and yards selling for $30,000, $40,000, sometimes under $50,000. At first, it felt like I had uncovered a secret solution to Australia's housing crisis. But the longer I stayed, the more unsettling it became. Empty streets, shuttered shops, homes sitting on the market for years with no buyers. These towns aren't cheap because they're undiscovered. They're cheap because people are leaving and not coming back. What I uncovered wasn't an investment opportunity or a lifestyle hack. It was a warning about the places Australia forgot and what their slow collapse tells us about the future of housing, work, and entire communities across this country. Before we continue, if you care about Australia's housing crisis, regional decline, and the hidden stories behind the headlines, hit the like button now and subscribe to the channel. Number 1. Andamuka, South Australia, where houses are cheap because the future is gone. The first town I drove into was Andamuka, a small opal mining settlement about 600 kilometers north of Adelaide. On the map, it looks insignificant. On the ground, it feels forgotten. Andamuka's population hovers around 400 people, and that number keeps shrinking. The town sits under a relentless sun. Dust settles on everything within minutes. Silence hangs heavy, broken only by the occasional ute passing through. Here, houses sell for $30,000 to $60,000. Not caravans, not ruins, actual houses with land. I walked through a 3-bedroom house listed for $45,000. Corrugated iron walls, a basic kitchen, a yard covered in red dirt and spinifex. Structurally sound, livable. And yet, it had been on the market for 18 months without a single offer. That was the first moment I understood something was deeply wrong. Andamuka exists because of opals. During the boom decades of the 1970s and 1980s, miners flooded in, money flowed, and the town grew. But the easy opals were pulled out long ago. What remains now is hard, dangerous work with uncertain returns. Most of the miners left are older men who have been here for decades. Their children didn't stay. They moved to Adelaide, Perth, anywhere with jobs, hospitals, and futures. The local school has about a dozen students. The pub opens 3 days a week. Basic services exist, but barely. I sat inside that empty house and asked the obvious question: who would buy this? An investor? There's no rental market. A retiree? You're hundreds of kilometers from major medical care. A remote worker? Internet is unreliable, and summer temperatures regularly hit 48 degrees Celsius. The low price isn't generosity, it's reality. Property prices reflect demand. And here, demand no longer exists. Not because the houses are bad, but because the economic foundation collapsed and never came back. Andamuka isn't waiting for a revival. It's slowly emptying out. This is what ultra-cheap housing really looks like in Australia. Not opportunity, but managed decline. A place where houses don't sell because there is no reason for new people to arrive. The tragedy is that Andamuka isn't unique. It's the first example of a pattern I would see again and again. Towns built around a single industry, abandoned when that industry faded, leaving behind cheap houses and trapped residents. In cities, housing is unaffordable because demand is too high. In places like Andamuka, housing is cheap because the future disappeared. And once a town reaches this stage, prices don't rebound. They drift lower, year after year, as people age, leave, or pass on. And no one replaces them. Andamuka isn't a hidden gem. It's a warning. Number 2. Quilpie, Queensland. Cheap homes, catastrophic risk. From South Australia, I drove northeast into far western Queensland, arriving in the small outback town of Quilpie. On paper, it looks like a miracle solution to Australia's housing crisis. The population sits at around 600 people. Median house prices hover near $70,000. Some properties sell for even less. At first glance, Quilpie feels alive. There's a main street, a council office, a school, a pub, and a sense of community you rarely see in big cities. But beneath that surface is a fragile reality that explains exactly why houses here are so cheap. Quilpie is another single industry town. Its economy depends on two things: opal mining and cattle grazing. That's it. There is no diversified employment base, no secondary industry waiting to absorb job losses, no backup plan. I spoke to a woman who moved to Quilpie 5 years ago with her husband. They bought a 3-bedroom house for $65,000, convinced they had beaten Australia's housing system. Her husband worked in the mines. She worked at the local council. For a while, it worked. Then the mine scaled back operations. Her husband lost his job. Almost overnight, their entire plan collapsed. They tried to sell the house. It sat on the market for more than a year. No offers, none. Eventually, they rented it out for $120 a week and moved to Toowoomba for work. That rent doesn't cover council rates, insurance, or maintenance. They are losing money every month while owning a house they cannot sell and cannot afford to keep. This is the trap of ultra-cheap towns. You think you're buying security. What you're really buying is concentration risk. In Quilpie, when the mine slows down, the whole town slows down with it. Businesses close, jobs disappear, people leave, demand for housing evaporates instantly. There is no gradual decline. There is no soft landing. House prices here aren't low because they haven't been discovered. They're low because the risk is binary. Either the mine operates or the town contracts. And when contraction begins, property becomes illiquid. You can't sell, even at bargain prices, because there's no one left to buy. This is what most city buyers don't understand. In Sydney or Melbourne, a downturn means slower growth. In places like Quilpie, it means total market paralysis. Cheap houses don't protect you from economic reality. They amplify it. Quilpie shows the second stage of decline. Not a dying town yet, but a town that can flip into crisis instantly when its single employer pulls back. By the time outsiders realize what's happening, it's already too late to exit. And as I left Quilpie, one thought stayed with me. A house without an economy behind it isn't affordable. It's a liability. Number 3, Lightning Ridge, New South Wales. Cheap houses, no takers. From Queensland, I crossed into northwestern New South Wales, arriving in Lightning Ridge, a town many Australians have heard of, but very few have ever seriously considered living in. Lightning Ridge has a population of around 2,000 people and is famous for one thing: opal mining. Compared to Andamuka or Quilpie, it looks almost prosperous. There's a hospital, a school, a handful of cafes, even a small art scene drawn by the desert landscape and low cost of living. And yet, houses here sell for $50,000 to $150,000. On paper, that sounds unbelievable. Walking through the town center, the reality becomes clearer. Half the shops are permanently closed, not temporarily shut, abandoned. Faded signs hang above dusty windows. Businesses that once served miners and tourists simply disappeared when the money dried up. Real estate listings tell the same story. Dozens of houses sit for sale at any given time. Some have been listed for years. One property caught my attention. 4 bedrooms. Large block, listed at $78,000. I called the agent. He laughed. Not because the price was ridiculous, but because it had already been reduced 4 times. The house had been on the market for 30 months. The owner had passed away, and the estate just wanted it gone. No one wanted it. In Sydney, $78,000 wouldn't buy you a parking space. In Lightning Ridge, it can't buy a buyer. This is where the illusion of cheap housing collapses. Lightning Ridge's economy still revolves around opal mining, an industry that is unpredictable, physically dangerous, and in long-term decline. The easy stones are gone. Younger workers don't arrive. Older miners stay because they have nowhere else to go. The people who live here fall into 2 groups. Those committed to the mining lifestyle, often for decades. Those trapped by circumstance, unable to sell and leave. There is no middle ground. If you're thinking about moving here, you quickly run into hard limits. Job opportunities outside mining are scarce. Internet reliability is inconsistent. Medical services are basic. Education options narrow quickly after primary school. Lightning Ridge feels like a town waiting for another mining boom that may never come. Waiting for young families who won't return. Waiting for an economic revival that died years ago. This is why houses are cheap. Not because the homes are bad, but because the future is uncertain. And uncertainty kills demand. The market is telling the truth, even when buyers don't want to hear it. Lightning Ridge taught me a crucial lesson. Low prices don't create demand when the fundamentals are broken. You can discount a house endlessly, but you can't discount geography, isolation, or economic decline. And once a town reaches this stage, prices don't bounce back. They stagnate, then slip lower as listings accumulate and buyers disappear. Lightning Ridge isn't collapsing dramatically, it's slowly emptying. And that's often worse. Number 4, Coober Pedy, South Australia. Famous, fascinating, and still empty. From Lightning Ridge, I headed back into South Australia toward Coober Pedy, arguably the most famous of Australia's ultra-cheap housing towns. It's known worldwide for its underground homes, carved into the hillsides to escape the brutal desert heat, and for decades it has been marketed as a uniquely Australian curiosity. And yet, houses here sell for $60,000 to $150,000 and still struggle to find buyers. Coober Pedy's population sits at around 1,700 people, down sharply from its peak of more than 3,000 during the opal boom years of the 1980s. Tourism keeps the town visible, but visibility is not the same as viability. I toured an underground home listed for $95,000. 3 bedrooms carved into rock, naturally cool, quiet, and structurally solid. It felt surreal, almost futuristic, the kind of place people online would call a dream bargain. The agent told me it had been empty for 2 years. The owner had moved to Adelaide for medical care. His children didn't want the property. They didn't want to manage it. They didn't want to live here. They just wanted it sold. That story repeats again and again in Coober Pedy. The problem isn't the houses. It's the distance, the isolation, and the limits of the economy. Coober Pedy is nearly 4 hours from the nearest major city. Employment revolves around opal mining and tourism, both unstable and insufficient to support population growth. Tourism creates short bursts of activity, but it doesn't provide long-term, high-paying jobs or economic resilience. Living here requires a very specific tolerance. Extreme heat, physical isolation, limited healthcare access, narrow education and career options. Most Australians simply aren't willing to make that trade-off. As mining has declined, younger generations have left. Schools have shrunk. Services have scaled back. What remains is a town slowly transitioning from a working community into a curiosity, visited, photographed, then left behind. Real estate listings reflect this reality. Properties linger on the market for years, not months. Prices are repeatedly reduced. Estates try to offload homes after owners pass away, often with no success. This is the key difference between cities and places like Coober Pedy: liquidity. In cities, you can usually sell, maybe at a lower price, but you can sell. In Coober Pedy, you might not sell at all. The market isn't saying these homes have no value as shelter. It's saying they have no value as assets. Coober Pedy taught me that even international fame can't overcome economic gravity. A town can be unique, historic, and globally recognized, and still decline if it lacks sustainable work and population renewal. The underground homes will remain, the tourists will keep coming, but the buyers rarely do. And once again, the low prices aren't an opportunity, they're a warning. Number 5. Cloncurry, Queensland. Stuck after the boom. Cloncurry sits in northwest Queensland, a town with a proud mining history, and just enough infrastructure to convince outsiders that it might be different from the smaller opal towns. It isn't. With a population of around 2,500, Cloncurry's median house prices hover near $120,000 to $140,000. That's higher than Andamuka or Quilpie, but still dramatically cheaper than any regional center with genuine growth prospects. At first glance, Cloncurry feels stable. It has a hospital, a high school, an airport with limited flights, and mining operations that date back more than a century. But stability is not the same as progress. Cloncurry's problem is stagnation. The major mines in the region have been gradually scaling back for years. Some closed, others reduced output. None expanded in a way that created long-term job growth. When the mining downturn hit in 2014-2015, the housing market collapsed and never recovered. A local real estate agent who had lived in Cloncurry for more than 20 years told me the same story I was hearing everywhere else. Houses that sold for $250,000 in 2012 now struggle to sell for $130,000. That isn't a correction. That's a permanent repricing. People who bought at the peak are underwater. People who bought later are stuck in a market where selling means taking a loss, sometimes a devastating one. The buyers who remain fall into 2 categories. Mining workers on temporary contracts, optimists from the cities hoping to flip property when the next boom arrives. But that next boom is uncertain. And even if it comes, History suggests it will be smaller and shorter than the last. This is the uncomfortable truth about towns like Cloncurry. Cheap houses don't mean low risk. They mean the future value of the asset is unclear or declining. Owning property here isn't an investment strategy. It's a bet on commodity prices, global demand, and corporate decisions made thousands of kilometers away. When the mind slows, demand disappears. When demand disappears, houses become illiquid. When houses become illiquid, owners are trapped. Cloncurry taught me something crucial. You're not buying a home. You're buying exposure to a single industry. And unlike stocks, you can't exit easily. You can't click sell when conditions turn. You wait months, years, sometimes forever, for a buyer who may never come. The houses look cheap because the market has already priced in the risk most outsiders ignore. Cloncurry isn't collapsing dramatically. It's frozen in place. A town waiting for growth that may never return. Number 6. Broken Hill, New South Wales. Bigger town, same decline. Broken Hill is different from the towns that came before it. And that's exactly what makes its situation so revealing. With a population of around 17,000, Broken Hill isn't a tiny outpost. It has real infrastructure. A major hospital, multiple schools, a TAFE campus, an airport with regular flights, cultural institutions, and a long history as one of Australia's most important mining centres. And yet, houses here still struggle to sell, even at prices that would seem impossible anywhere else. Median house prices in Broken Hill sit around $190,000 to $210,000. In Adelaide or Melbourne, a comparable home would be worth 3 times that. On paper, Broken Hill looks like one of the last truly affordable towns in Australia. In reality, it's a place caught in slow structural decline. Mining built Broken Hill, and mining is now winding down. Major operations have reduced output or closed entirely over the years. Employment has steadily fallen, not in dramatic waves, but in a long, grinding contraction. I toured a solid brick, 3-bedroom home, listed for $190,000. Large yard, well maintained, nothing wrong with it. The seller, a man in his 60s, told me it had been on the market for 14 months with no serious offers. He wasn't angry, he wasn't desperate, he was resigned. He'd lived in Broken Hill for 40 years, raised his family there, worked the mines, and loved the community. But his children had left. Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. They weren't coming back. And now, as he approached retirement, he was following them. That story repeats across Broken Hill. Young people leave for opportunity. Older residents stay until they can't. Houses come onto the market. Buyers don't replace them. Tourism helps, but it can't employ thousands. Heritage, art, and remote beauty bring visitors, not long-term population growth. Government services provide stability, but not expansion. As a result, Broken Hill's housing market has been flat or declining for more than a decade. Prices haven't crashed, but they haven't grown either. Inflation adjusted, many homeowners have gone backward. This is the danger of slow decline. It doesn't feel like a crisis. There's no sudden collapse, but over time, equity erodes, liquidity disappears, and exit options narrow. Broken Hill shows that even larger regional towns are not immune. Infrastructure alone doesn't save a housing market if the economic engine behind it is fading. The houses here are cheap, not because they're poor quality, but because the town's future is uncertain, and uncertainty suppresses demand. Broken Hill isn't a ghost town. It's something more unsettling. It's a functioning community slowly shrinking, one retirement and one departure at a time, and a housing market that reflects that reality with brutal honesty. Number 7. Kambalda, Western Australia. When a boom turns into a wipeout. Kambalda is where the illusion of cheap housing finally collapses completely. Located east of Kalgoorlie in Western Australia, Kambalda was once a textbook mining success story. During the nickel boom of the early 2000s, the town surged. Population climbed above 3,000 people. Wages were strong. Confidence was high. Houses sold for $350,000 to $400,000, and buyers believed the boom would last. It didn't. When nickel prices collapsed, everything followed. Major mining operations were suspended or scaled back. Workers left in waves. What remained was a town built for growth, suddenly trying to survive decline. Today, Kambalda's population has fallen to around 1,500. Median house prices now sit near $140,000 to $160,000. Homes that once sold for nearly $500,000 are now worth a fraction of that. This isn't a correction, it's a wipeout. Walking through Cambalda is confronting. Entire streets sit quiet. Some houses are boarded up, others are empty, lawns burnt out. For sale signs faded by years of sun. In certain pockets, every second house is vacant. Local agents told me something I hadn't heard elsewhere. Some owners simply walked away. They couldn't sell, they couldn't rent. They couldn't justify paying council rates and maintenance on a house worth less than the debt attached to it. So they abandoned the property and moved on, absorbing the loss. The houses that do sell are bought almost exclusively by short-term mining contractors, speculators hoping for another boom. But that hope is thin. Mining may return temporarily, but the town will never reach its previous peak again. Everyone knows it, buyers, sellers, and banks alike. Lending is tighter, confidence is gone, liquidity is weak. Cambalda demonstrates the most dangerous truth about ultra-cheap housing. Prices can fall far more than people expect and never recover. Buying a cheap house here doesn't give you downside protection. It exposes you to permanent loss. This is what happens when a town is built entirely around a single commodity. When that commodity fails, the town doesn't gently shrink, it unravels. Cambalda taught me the most important lesson of the entire journey. When the market offers houses at extreme discounts, it's not generosity, it's a signal. A signal that future demand is uncertain, that exit options are limited, that the economic story is already over, and once a town crosses that line, price alone can't bring buyers back. Number 8. Ravensthorpe, Western Australia. Built for thousands, left with hundreds. Ravensthorpe is one of the clearest examples in Australia of how fast a town can rise, and how brutally it can fall. Located on Western Australia's south coast, Ravensthorpe was transformed almost overnight in the mid-2000s when a major nickel mining project was announced. At its peak, the town was preparing for a population of 3,000 to 4,000 people. New houses were built, infrastructure expanded, optimism ran high, and then, almost as quickly as it arrived, the boom collapsed. The mines shut down, jobs vanished, families left. Today, Ravensthorpe's population sits at under 500 people. The housing market tells the story more clearly than any statistic. Homes that once sold for $400,000 during the boom now struggle to sell for $80,000 to $120,000. Some listings have sat untouched for years, despite repeated price cuts. I walked through a modern 3-bedroom house built during the boom years. Brick construction, solar panels, a decent-sized yard. It was listed for $95,000. The owner had relocated to Perth for work. He wasn't trying to make a profit. He just wanted out. This is what makes Ravensthorpe so devastating. The collapse happened too fast for most owners to escape. Unlike slow decline towns, Ravensthorpe went from boom to bust in a matter of months. When the mine shut, demand evaporated instantly. Banks tightened lending. Buyers disappeared. Sellers were trapped. Some owners rented their homes for token amounts just to cover rates. Others left them vacant. A few abandoned them altogether. What remains is a town with infrastructure designed for thousands, but demand from only a few hundred residents. Schools downsized, businesses closed, services scaled back, and once confidence is broken at this level, it rarely returns. Potential buyers look at Ravensthorpe and see risk, not opportunity. They see a place where prices didn't just fall, but collapsed, and where the next boom is uncertain at best. This is the danger of towns built entirely around a single mega project. When that project fails, the damage isn't cyclical, it's structural. Ravensthorpe shows that even new houses aren't safe if the economic foundation disappears. The buildings remain, the roads remain, but without people, jobs, and long-term industry, property becomes a burden rather than an asset. Cheap housing here isn't a bargain. It's the residue of broken expectations. And for anyone thinking ultra-cheap towns offer a way out of Australia's housing crisis, Ravensthorpe delivers a brutal message. When the boom dies suddenly, the housing market doesn't recover. It freezes. Number 9. Tennant Creek, Northern Territory, when isolation becomes the price. Tennant Creek sits almost exactly in the middle of Australia, hundreds of kilometers from any major city. On a map, it looks like a strategic crossroads. On the ground, it feels like a town slowly being left behind. With a population of around 3,000 people, Tennant Creek is one of the Northern Territory's key regional centers. It has an airport, hospital, schools, and government services. And yet, houses here routinely sell for $70,000 to $130,000, prices that barely seem real in modern Australia. The reason is not mystery. It's isolation combined with decline. Tennant Creek's economy was once supported by gold mining and pastoral activity. Those industries have faded. What remains is a town heavily dependent on government employment and welfare spending, with limited private sector growth to replace what was lost. Walking through residential streets, the signs are subtle but consistent. Empty houses, overgrown yards, properties with for sale signs that look weathered, as if they've been there for a long time. I spoke to a local agent who told me some houses have been listed for over 2 years with no serious interest. Even at prices below $100,000, buyers hesitate. Because buying here is not just purchasing a house, it's committing to a way of life few Australians want. Employment options are narrow. Internet reliability is inconsistent. Access to specialized healthcare requires long-distance travel. Education opportunities thin out quickly beyond early schooling. For young families, the trade-offs are too severe. For retirees, medical access is a deal-breaker. For investors, rental demand is unstable and heavily influenced by government policy. This is the harsh reality. Cheap houses do not overcome lifestyle barriers. Another factor suppressing demand is population turnover. Tennant Creek experiences a constant cycle of people arriving for short-term roles, teachers, health workers, contractors, and leaving again within a year or two. That churn prevents the formation of long-term housing demand. When people don't settle, they don't buy. Property prices here reflect that instability. They haven't just stagnated. They've drifted downward for more than a decade. Inflation adjusted, most homeowners are significantly worse off than they were 10 years ago. Owning property in Tennant Creek isn't about capital growth, it's about cost containment, and even that comes with risk. When demand is thin, selling becomes difficult. When selling is difficult, liquidity disappears. Tennant Creek teaches another uncomfortable lesson about ultra-cheap housing. Price alone cannot compensate for remoteness, limited opportunity, and declining population. You can buy a house here for less than the cost of renovating a bathroom in Sydney. But what you're really buying is a commitment to isolation. And for most Australians, that price is simply too high. Number 10, Queenstown, Tasmania. Cheap homes in a town that never recovered. Queenstown, on Tasmania's rugged west coast, feels different from every town that came before it. Not because it's healthier, but because its decline is old, quiet, and permanent. This is not a boom and bust town. This is a town that never truly came back. Queenstown was once a thriving mining center. Copper built the town, carved the surrounding mountains bare, and supported thousands of workers. At its peak in the early 1900s, more than 10,000 people lived here. Today, the population struggles to reach 2,000 toddlers and continues to drift downward. Houses in Queenstown regularly sell for $60,000 to $120,000. I walked through a weatherboard home listed for $75,000. 2 bedrooms, solid bones, nothing fundamentally wrong with it. The problem wasn't the house. It was the absence of a future attached to it. Queenstown's economy rests on 3 pillars: tourism, government services, and a small number of local businesses. Mining, the original engine, is gone. Tourism brings visitors, but visitors don't become residents. They arrive, take photos, stay a night, and leave. And when people don't stay, housing demand never forms. Jobs are limited. Career progression is almost non-existent. Young people leave for Hobart, Launceston, or the mainland as soon as they finish school. Those who remain are often older residents with deep ties to the town, ties that don't translate into new buyers. This creates a demographic trap. Homes come onto the market as older residents downsize, relocate for healthcare, or pass away. But there is no next generation lining up to replace them. Listings accumulate, prices soften, liquidity disappears. Local agents told me some properties have changed hands only once in 30 or 40 years. And when they do sell, it's often at prices barely higher than decades earlier. Adjusted for inflation, many homeowners have lost money simply by holding. Queenstown's remoteness compounds the issue. It's hours from major population centers. Winter weather is harsh. Access to specialized healthcare requires long travel. For families, the lifestyle trade-offs are simply too great. This is why houses are cheap here, and why they stay cheap. Queenstown isn't waiting for a revival, it's maintaining equilibrium at a lower level. And that may be the most sobering lesson of all. Not all towns collapse suddenly. Some settle into a long-term state of decline, where prices stabilize. Not because demand returns, but because there's nowhere lower to fall. Queenstown shows the final stage of ultra-cheap housing in Australia. A place where homes still have value as shelter, but almost none as assets. The houses will remain, the town will persist. But growth, population, prices, opportunity is no longer part of the story. And that's the truth behind Australia's $50,000 houses. They're not hidden bargains. They're the footprints of places where the future quietly moved on.